For less than £3,500, you can either buy a 77-inch OLED TV or this massive 98-inch mini LED TV from TCL. And for those of you who have enough living space, the TCL 98-incher may be the more appealing option because sometimes size does matter. But how's the picture quality? Let's find out. The TCL 98Q9B uses a VA-type LCD panel boasting a very high native contrast ratio of 6000 to 1, as measured on a 4x4 ANSI checkerboard pattern with local dimming disabled. The mini LED TV is equipped with 1536 local dimming zones in a 48x32 grid. Taking a leaf from Samsung's LED LCD TVs from a few years ago, TCL's local dimming algorithm prioritizes contrast and blooming suppression over picture accuracy. Because of this, owners of the TCL 98Q9B get to enjoy some of the inkiest letterbox bars and the least amount of blooming among mini LED televisions on the market today, but not without a few compromises. Small bright highlights would be dimmed down to maintain deep blacks and keep blooming at bay. And the 98Q9B also wasn't shy about sacrificing some shadow detail in pursuit of higher perceived contrast. Note that in certain low APL scenes, the top and bottom letterbox bars could look slightly grayer than expected, partially due to the restricted viewing angles of the VA LCD panel, since the bars are always off-axis to your line of sight on such a big screen. Colorimetry was similar to other TCL TVs we've tested in recent years, in that even though the 98Q9B could be calibrated to video industry standards on a 10% window, the luminance and color accuracy wouldn't carry over to real-world content in a faithful manner, since the aggressive local dimming algorithm on the TV would alter the luminance, gamma, and color temperature on different window sizes and APLs anyway. Don't get us wrong, the TCL 98Q9B can still be adjusted to look fairly natural. Just don't expect reference-grade accuracy from one scene to the next. HDR peak brightness measured above 2000 nits on a 10% window after calibration to D65 whitepoint, and 670 nits full screen, imparting striking HDR impact to high APL scenes, which is further amplified by the gigantic screen size. The HDR10 EOTF in out-of-the-box movie mode tracked noticeably brighter than the ST2084 PQ standard, but this was easily rectified by manually setting the TV's HDR peak brightness value to the measured figure of 2000 nits, and we actually found the HDR presentation of the TCL 98Q9B to be more accurate and less over-brightened in real-life viewing compared to the step-up C855, thanks possibly to the absence of an undefeatable boost mode implemented on the latter. Otherwise, the TCL 98Q9B adapted its HDR10 tone curve to maximum display mastering luminance or max DML metadata, allowing for good retention of specular highlight detail in HDR10 titles graded to 4000 nits. TCL's dynamic tone mapping algorithm would brighten the HDR picture more than reference, even on the lowest detail priority setting, regardless of whether the image was under 200 nits or up to 1000 nits, such as in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, or up to 4000 nits, so we preferred disabling dynamic tone mapping on the TCL 98Q9B for the sake of accuracy. DCI-P3 color gamut coverage came in at 94% in UV terms, whereas REC 2020 coverage was 72%, with the underlying spectral power distribution showing a PFS phosphor base augmented by quantum dots to boost the green wavelength. Besides vanilla HDR10 and HLG, the 98-inch TCL Q9B also supports HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision dynamic metadata formats, although its Dolby Vision presentation was far too bright even in the most accurate Dolby Vision dark picture mode. Even with motion clarity disabled, the TCL 98Q9B correctly performed 5.5 pull-down to display slow panning shots in 24 frames per second movies without telescenic judder. Engaging motion clarity would unlock further motion processing options, namely LED motion clear backlight scanning, as well as blur reduction and judder reduction motion interpolation settings, which are independently adjustable to enhance motion clarity or smoothness respectively depending on your requirements. Like other TCL televisions we've reviewed so far, the motion processing on the 98Q9B still wasn't as refined as that seen on Tier 1 brands, exhibiting intermittent microstutter immediately after scene cuts in 50Hz football broadcast, even with motion clarity disabled. This 50Hz microstutter could be eradicated by switching to game mode, but of course this would also preclude all motion interpolation to improve motion clarity. Upscaling was decent if not outstanding, retrieving acceptable detail from this SMPTE RP133 test card in 576i to be displayed on the humongous 98-inch screen, though it goes without saying that the higher the resolution of the video source signal, the better the outcome. Despite not offering a discrete film mode setting in the picture menu, the TCL 98Q9B correctly detected and processed 3-2 and 2-2 cadences in interlaced film-based material. Courtesy of the onboard Mediatek Pentonic 700 chipset, native 10-bit gradation was extremely good on the 98-inch Q9B, with no added posterization in the skies of the Martian beyond what's originally in the source signal. In terms of screen uniformity, we saw no obvious bending on our review unit, although some mild dirty screen effect or DSE was inevitable at such a large screen size, and the edges would appear noticeably tinted and darker owing to the narrower viewing angles of the VA-type LCD panel. In game mode, input lag measured 13.5 milliseconds at 60 frames per second, which could be reduced further to 9.5 milliseconds by setting refresh rate to performance mode that essentially performs frame doubling to 120 FPS. Feeding the TCL 98Q9B a true 120 frames per second video signal yielded an impressively low input lag of 5.5 milliseconds, and this latency figure could go down to 3 milliseconds at 240 FPS, which would entail halved vertical resolution, though with line averaging to minimize aliasing artifacts. Thanks to the new Mediatek Pentonic 700 SoC, 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision gameplay was now possible through the Xbox Series X. When it came to adjusting the HDRG values on the console, the 98Q9B clipped at 1050 nits, which is much earlier than expected given the TV's measured peak brightness, caused by TCL's HDR10 algorithm which overbrightened the picture. As expected for a Pentonic 700 chipset, only 2 out of 4 HDMI ports supported HDMI 2.1 FRL bandwidth, although thankfully TCL has managed to migrate eARC functionality to one of the 2 4K 60Hz HDMI 2.0 ports on the Q9B, thus truly freeing up the 2 HDMI 2.1 ports for those intending to use eARC with an external soundbar or home theater system. Talking about sound, there's an Onkyo branded woofer at the back of the TV, contributing to surprisingly impressive audio by TV standards, with noteworthy bass, soundstage, dialogue clarity and volume that could hold the fort until you decide to spend money on an external soundbar or speakers. We also commend TCL for responding to feedback by making the mute icon go away a few seconds after muting the volume, a welcome improvement over the default behavior of their previous TVs. Let's sum up. I don't know how TCL keeps doing it again and again, but the 98Q9B is yet another TV from the company that offers tremendous value for money, with a comprehensive feature list that belies its fairly modest price tag. High contrast VA LCD panel? Check. Mini LED backlighting? Check. More than 1500 local dimming zones? Check. 2000 nits of HDR peak brightness? Check. Mediatek Pentonic 700 chipset that provides outstanding native 10-bit gradation and up to 4K 144Hz Dolby Vision gaming? Check. Multi-HDR support including for Dolby Vision and HDR10+? Check. Yes, it's a bit rough around the edges in terms of motion and upscaling, and its narrow viewing angles and semi-gloss screen coating may not go down well with certain quarters, but at the end of the day, we're talking about a very well-spec'd 98-inch TV for less than £3,500, and so the TCL 98Q9B gets our recommended Best Value award. Note that in the UK, the TV is sold exclusively through Costco, and looking further abroad, The TCL 98C765 appears to share similar specifications. Now, if you can't decide whether to go for an ultra-large TV or a projector for your home theater setup, I have actually done a side-by-side comparison video, and you can find out the results by clicking here.